Welcome to Recipe to Success, the show where we sit down with entrepreneurs from all different backgrounds to learn more about their journey to success. My name is Humza Zahoor, CEO and founder of Social Awaken. I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to another episode of Recipe to Success. Today not only is an exciting episode, but I'm in a beautiful building in the heart of Canary Wharf, thanks to Jag. This one is really going to be full of value, so I'm really excited. Jag, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming on. I personally am really excited about this one because I already know off camera we've had amazing conversations and I know that people are going to really benefit from it. So yeah, how have you been? How has lockdown been? What's the challenges that you've been facing recently?
I've been very good. Lockdown has had its challenges, but we always have solutions for every problem. So things are running really smoothly now.
That's amazing. So for anyone that hasn't seen you or doesn't know exactly what Jag does, why don't you give us a little bit of a background?
Sure. My background is property and finance, and I have various interests in different businesses. Some of those include health, fitness, influencer marketing, and media.
Wow. So, when I did a little bit of like a background check, because obviously I've been following you for a little while, but then I have to obviously see, okay, what does this person really do, right? And when you see the word conglomerate, you know, okay, this guy, he's got multiple businesses, but it's on a big scale. So why don't we go into how everything first began? Because obviously there's a lot of businesses in the journey and you've got a lot of things going on, and we'll go into it in a bit more detail. But where did it all begin?
Great question. So I come from a background of construction. My father owns a builder's merchant. He has been building properties for over 40 years in the UK, and that's my background, and I'm extremely proud of that. My dad comes from a village in Punjab, India, and self-educated. That's the way I like to class his generation, because a lot of the youth kind of talk about their parents and say they can't speak English, they weren't educated. I beg to differ on opinion, and I say that they're self-educated because they taught themselves what they needed to know to become successful in their own way. So that's my background. I grew up in a builder's merchant with my dad. I used to be with him before school, after school, in my school holidays. It was his way of trying to teach me how to follow a path which is going to help me to be successful. So when I finished my studies, I started in the communications industry because I wanted to step aside from the builder's merchant and the construction industry. So my first business was a mobile phone shop, and that was at the age of around 18.
Wow. And
very quickly we became very successful. We started to supply other mobile phone stores, and we had market stores as well. So it was a very hands-on type of business. People see us today in suits and they think, maybe it was always like that. And it wasn't a case of where I had to do that. I had a family business that I could very easily have been part of. But I chose to do that because I wanted to create my own verticals, my own success, and I wanted to learn through that. And we were very successful for just under 3 years, until supermarkets started to sell mobile phones, and I could see a decline, and very quickly I switched back to what I knew, which was property and construction. So I started my real estate business at the age of around 21. From there we kind of grew into different verticals.
So you mentioned that you obviously started your first business at 18 and you had been in the builder's merchants business as a kid. Did you have the challenge of, you need to study and you need to follow a certain path, because your dad obviously was an entrepreneur? So did you have that challenge, or was it like your dad was just supportive of whatever you wanted to do?
My dad had a very simple theory, and it was like, son, you either study or you come and work in a builder's merchant. There was no other option that he gave me. So it's like, if you're not going to study and become a doctor, a lawyer, as in Asian households, that's what everyone expects you to become. Mm-hmm. And that's how traditionally you would be respected. My son's a doctor, or my son's a lawyer. You hear that. And my dad was like, okay, it's cool. You don't want to study, you come and work in a builder's merchant. So, but my mum was the one, she used to always say to me, look, I want you to be a lawyer. I want you to be a barrister or a doctor. So I had that balance.
You've got that look with the suit on as well. The smart barrister.
Well, when I wear a suit, I do think of my mum, and I think that, you know, if she were looking down now, she would be very proud, and she was when she was around, because I did, to some extent, achieve what she wanted me to achieve. She wanted to see me in an office environment, not in a builder's merchant environment. That was what she wanted. But my dad knew that, you know, success doesn't just come from being a doctor or a lawyer. There are many other professions. And he's proud of what he achieved, because he knows that, you know, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing today if it wasn't for the sacrifices that they made. So, yeah, you know, there was challenges. And when I started my first business, it was difficult for me to convince my dad that, you know, give me an opportunity to step aside from the family business, because I'm not going to pursue my studies. I'm not going to go and get a master's in something else. I want to do something completely different. And for him, it was difficult to accept initially. So it was a challenge. You know, let me do what I'm doing. And he's like, okay, well, if you fail, you're going to be coming back to the builder's merchant. And I used to think, you know what? By the way, I have no problem in working in a builder's merchant. I'm proud of that. But I just didn't want to fail, to then go and lose my confidence and say, you know what? I'm going to work in a builder's merchant because I failed at my business. And that was my motivation.
But what was the reason that you wanted to do your own thing? Like, because you were very young at that age, 18, you started a business. You know, some people can't even imagine that. So to not only have that conscious decision of, I'm going to start my own business, but I don't want to necessarily follow the same path as my dad, was that something you had thought about as a kid? Or was it just like, as you had finished your studies, you thought, okay, I need to do my own thing?
I think because of the way that I was brought up, my dad was very strict. I got no problem admitting that. Some people would be ashamed of that. I'm proud of that. He was very strict when I was growing up. We were very restricted in what we were allowed to do and what we weren't. I had a limited amount of friends, and the majority of the friends that I had were much older than me. And I was quite inspired by what I had learnt from my father. And I wanted to be able to do something that I enjoy doing. And in those days, mobile phones were something which were quite new, and it was quite a trend. I knew what my skills were, you know, as following my father's footsteps. I knew what my skills were, and I had made contacts in that industry when I used to study. So I just wanted an opportunity to know whether or not what I had here could work. And I didn't feel that if I was in a builder's merchant that I could innovate much more than what we were already doing to be able to create more success. So I wanted that opportunity, and I had a huge challenge. I spoke to my dad about it, and I said, look, this is what I want to do. And he said, look, you know what? It's not a business that we're involved with. We don't know much about it. And I convinced him that, look, I will do what it takes to make this a success. Just have faith. If I fail, I'll be back in the builder's merchant. And somehow I knew that he had it in the back of his mind that if he fails, he's set for life in the builder's merchant. And I didn't want that. I knew the builder's merchant would still be there, 5-10 years time, but I wanted an opportunity to be able to prove that I'm able to be successful myself. So that was how it kind of all began.
It's interesting because a lot of young people nowadays, they still struggle, like generation later, 2 generations later, they still have the same struggles of maybe convincing their parents, particularly maybe in an Asian household, that, this is the path I want to take. And a lot of, even people DM me and kind of ask me, what do you advise in terms of actually doing what I want to do and still pleasing my parents? So Jag, I would ask you, what would you recommend, having done it yourself?
Do you know the biggest thing that helped me with my journey was being friends with my dad. Yeah, more than a father, I looked at him as a friend. So I would have him involved with discussions on a frequent basis, and that's what I see that most of the youth today fail at. And then they expect their parents to agree with everything that they say, but that communication is not the way it should be. Of course they're going to have their reservations. I have 2 children of my own. If I didn't have a good communication line with them, if they came up with a brand new idea, which I didn't know how they have arrived there, of course I'm going to reject it. It's natural, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So having a good connection with your parents is the first step to convincing them to agree to what you want to do. You know, so I think that was one of the things that helped me to have my parents agree, and also understanding how they think.
Mm-hmm.
How can I understand my parents better? I need to be able to know how they think and why they think in a certain way. And if there is some changes, I mean, some parents are still stuck in the 1970s. They refuse to let go. But so much has changed, and they don't want to take risk. You have to take risk to be successful. It's very simple. And my father has taken many risks, but they're calculated.
Mm.
That's the difference.
They're not gambles.
They're not gambles. I take bigger risks than my dad would take, but I calculate those risks in a different way, because I kind of am a little bit more connected with what's happening in the wider spectrum, different audiences, different parts of the world. Whereas my dad, he's focused on certain areas, so he's good at what he does, and I know maybe a few different. I know different information that I can process, but then because we communicate frequently, we're able to kind of have that, you know, relationship where, you know, he may not always agree with me, and in one of the businesses that I started, he disagreed. So, you know, it's not always going to be a win-win, but, you know, having a good communication with your parents, very important. And if there's the younger generation, which is why I connected with you, because I think what you're doing is great.
Thank you.
You're trying to inspire the youth, and that's why I wanted to connect with you. And I think that if there's the younger generation out there who are finding it difficult to convince their parents, maybe don't work on convincing them right now. Maybe work on improving your communication and your relationship first.
Yeah, the foundation is everything.
Absolutely.
So let's go back a little bit to the story, right? So obviously, you at this point, 18 to 21, you've done the phone industry, kind of risk the business running that. It's kind of changed a little bit, not the kind of the direction that you wanted to. Supermarkets have now started selling handsets and things like that. Where do you go from there? And how do you also then have that conversation with your dad as well, saying, okay, this is done well, but now I'm going to do something else, as opposed to going back to the builders merchants?
Yeah. If I come to you and say, Humza, you know what? This business that we started is now declining. I'm going to think about doing something else.
Of course.
Or if I came back to you and said, Dad, or Humza, you know, this business is declining because of this. Here are all the reasons. But I found a solution, which was that one of the people that I used to supply accessories and stock with, I got a valuation of everything that I had in my store, and I said, give me a valuation, and I want you to stand by your valuation and purchase everything if I agree within 24 hours. But I also went back and thought, okay, what am I going to do next? I had already researched everything. I was going to convert my office, my shop, into an office, start the real estate business from there as a real estate agent, sales, lettings, and finance. I already had pinpointed key members of staff that I was going to employ. I already put the finances in place. So when I went to my dad, I said, Dad, this is how we are right now. Here's how we grew, and here's how I can see a decline now. But before we hit even further decline, I can sell right now, invest into this business, into this building, which we own, convert it into an office, and start the real estate business, which will also help our own real estate that we own, and it would help us to integrate what we do with the builder's merchant and expand. I knew he weren't going to say no to that. In fact, I knew that in a roundabout way, this was the perfect thing that he would have wanted, because it's kind of connected to what we do in the construction industry. We attract more landlords. We can add more value to other people, and you know, it's going to open up many more opportunities for us to invest in real estate. So when I went to my dad, he says, when do we start? And the thing was, it was like people were looking at me thinking, okay, maybe he's closing down the phone shop because he's failed or losses. I knew what was going to happen. Within 10 days of me closing that door, my dad's team was in that building, refurbishing that place, converting it into an office. 10 days later, I already had a start date. Bang, the signs went up. I had people sitting there, and I wore a suit for the first time, and I remember looking at my mum's expression. She was smiling and thinking, that's what I wanted my son to do, you know. But I didn't think that I'd pick up another textbook to study again, and that happened in 2004.
Wow. So you went back to studies?
When we started the real estate business, it was phenomenal when we started, because, you know, I had a very good network anyway. When I was a kid, I used to read contracts, read agreements for my dad, because his English wasn't that great. So I used to always be that person who used to do the admin work. And property was one of the things that I knew. And I used to not only do it for my dad, but also a lot of his friends. So they used to say, in Hindi or Urdu or Punjabi, Beta, could you check this agreement? And I'm like, okay, this is what it says, and fill it out, write it out for them. And tenancy agreements was something which was second nature to me. So I already had a bank of people that knew who I am. Now that I was doing property, it was like, Beta, deal with our property for us. Just deal with it. So, I knew that was going to be kind of my easy in route into dealing with property. So that was kind of how we started. But what used to happen was, when you're dealing with property, you have people who require funding. You have people who need mortgages. You have people who need finance. And I used to outsource that business. But the problem that I had was, the people that I used to outsource it was, they used to take us for granted. They never really used to do it properly. And people used to come to me not because we advertised. They used to come with me because of my word. If I give you my word, I'm going to stand by that word. Simple. That's one of the things my dad taught me. Under promise and over deliver. Otherwise, say no. If you don't feel that you can over deliver, just say no. It's better to maintain a relationship with somebody based on the respect that they have for you than lose it because you hope that you can do something. Hope isn't a business plan. And because I had one element of my business where I used to have to rely on somebody, rely on somebody and hope that they don't let me down, that was where I was failing. So I used to have a lot of mortgage applications that used to come through our office, and because it was overwhelming amount of business, they used to take us for granted. And in the end, I was kind of really upset that I'm letting a few people down on timelines. So the best thing to do is, if you can't rely on somebody to do something for you, do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
So I then qualified as a mortgage advisor, and because I was really busy, I actually done I just disconnected myself from everybody, and I studied every single day for a few weeks, done my exams, came back, and then I started with the finance. So I studied and held a professional qualification for that. And the qualification is not that difficult. Even today, a lot of people who want to advise on finance, they can go and do a qualification. But it's about knowing your market, and that's what I knew best. So the qualification was pretty easy for me, and we kind of grew from there.
Okay, so you mentioned something along the way in the story, that with everything that was going on, you had kind of seen the business declining, and with the phone industry in that scenario. Now, my question is, a lot of people, right, they get so attached to their businesses, whether it's failing or succeeding, they don't know when to say let's call it a day. And beyond that, especially nowadays with social media and everything being online, they are petrified to be called a failure or to be seen as a failure. So from your perspective, obviously you were very smart and you were very entrepreneurial in that situation, having seen that the business was declining. It hadn't declined yet, but it was heading in that direction. And you said to yourself, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do something else, bigger and better. So what do you advise to anyone that is too attached emotionally to their business, that they are unable to differentiate whether or not this is going to work or not, and maybe they're just holding on to it for the perception, and when do you say, okay, let's call it a day and let's do something else?
Well, firstly, the first question is about believing in yourself, having the confidence. Don't procrastinate. Failure is part and parcel of the growth process. It's really that simple. If you've never failed, you're never really going to learn anything new. Does that make sense?
Of course.
So if you believe in something, make a decision and stop thinking about it. Be confident and go for it. Because if you fail, you'll learn how not to do something and how to do it better. Some of the most successful businesses in the world have a foundation of failures. And if you really give a about what people think, then you're never going to grow. Do you think that I never got hate? I got hate from day one. There were people from the first business that I opened that were hating. And the thing is, I'm not going to lie, it used to bother me a lot. When I closed my phone shop, I had a lot of people message and laugh that it failed. You failed.
People in your community, like
People
friends?
in the community. Friends, people in the community, indirectly. And the thing is, it's like, everyone loves to spread hate. It's almost like, I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people do. It's how people thrive.
They gravitate more towards negativity than positivity.
Human nature. If you hear a bad headline in the news, you're going to listen to that more than somebody telling you that if you ran 10 miles that you can burn XYZ calories, because it's hard work. It's more entertaining. That's how people look at it. And that's why bad news it sells. So when I closed my first business, I didn't look at it as a failure. I drew the line. I could see a decline. Why am I going to wait for it to hit the floor? Why am I going to do that? I'm a businessman. Yes, I had emotions attached to that. But that was a great memory. I would never change that for anything. I learnt so much from that business. It was my very first business. I still think of those days. And I write down the things that I learnt then and apply them now. And when I got the hate, when people said that you failed, we told you so, ha ha ha, that was my inspiration. When I started that business, I started it with determination. I didn't want to take money from my father to start that business. I sold my most prized possession when I was 18 years old, which was my BMW.
No way.
It was the best thing that I owned. Because at that age, I wasn't as mature as I am today here. Although a lot of my friends and the people that I had around me were much older because of my father, but that was my most prized possession because I was recognized. You have gratification. You're too young to understand that those things will fade. There's more important things in life. But I sold that BMW to start my phone shop.
Wow.
And the day I sold it, I could remember having a lump in my throat thinking, man, I'm going to buy 2 BMWs next. That's my goal. And that's why I'm going to work hard. That's how you create goals. It was so important to me at the time. So when I was doing markets on Sundays with mobile phone accessories on 4 o'clock when people were out partying, coming back from clubs, I was driving to market stalls, setting up stalls in the freezing cold. I was cool because I knew why I'm doing it. I had a whole lot of people that used to point and laugh, driving a little Suzuki van now from a BMW, but I knew patience. I'll prove it. So when I closed that business and people were laughing, that was my motivation. I'm like, it's cool. I know what I'm working towards. I don't care what you think, because those people will eat their words again, just like they did when they were laughing at me downsizing. But it's okay. If you're going to be bothered about what these people think, you're never going to grow. Don't worry about what they think. Focus on what's important for you.
The one thing that I took from that BMW story is sacrifice. And I think so many people nowadays, they want a certain lifestyle. They that's their dream, but they're not willing, not necessarily to put in the work, because there are people that work hard and they're very good at being an employee, for example. But when it comes to being an entrepreneur, they lack the discipline, they lack the sacrifice. So how important was sacrifice throughout your journey? Beyond just that BMW story, was there a lot of things that you had to sacrifice along the way to get that life that you wanted?
Absolutely. And one point I do want to make clear is that, that thought about the BMW and getting a better BMW and getting 2 of them, and I did, by the way, that was only because I wasn't developed enough to understand that there are much bigger goals. Okay, but the point I'm going to try and make to you here is that it's the journey that's more valuable than the end goal. That's what I learned. So when you make a sacrifice, okay, you value the result even more. Without sacrifice, you will not value the result. So if you had a goal of, let's say, getting the biggest house ever or getting a brand new car, and you didn't have to sacrifice something to get that, then you're not going to really value it. If you had to sacrifice, the easiest way to describe it is if you paid, £1 million for a house as opposed to £100,000 for a house. If you paid $1 million for it, you're going to value it even more. Sacrifice is the same. When you have to give up something and wait for something to happen, you'll value it when you get it. So sacrifice is what I learned through this whole process, and that's what helps me even today. And the types of things that you have to sacrifice is, going out with your friends, not doing the things that everyone else is doing, giving up on sleep. I've worked around the clock. My dad saw it when recently he traveled with me, and some of my staff see it, some of my team see it. It's not because I want to, somebody's going to come and give me a medal, but sometimes I value time so much, and sometimes I don't have enough of it when I'm traveling. I have to utilize every single minute, and other people will not always understand that. Do you think that I wouldn't want to rather sleep in? Of course. But the thing that motivates me the most is the thought of somebody else doing my job better than me. And I teach or train all of my teams that one principle. If somebody can do your job better than you, step down and let them do it. And the thought of somebody doing my job better than me, because even in my own companies, I look at myself as an employee of the company. If somebody can do what I do better than me, then I have to step down and let them do it. It's not fair on the rest of my team.
You take the ego away from it.
Of course. Ego is the first step towards failure. So, when you think of your position as that, the sacrifices are a small price to pay, because it's a privilege to be in the position that you're in. There's a lot of people, no matter where you are on that ladder, there's a lot of people who are in a much worse position than you. So appreciate where you are. So the sacrifices are more easily accepted.
100%. So at that point, okay, let's go back to the story. So you've now started getting into the properties. You've studied for the mortgage advisor. Where do you then go to building global brands?
In summary, it's a long story. The property business grew incredibly, and we took on mortgage advisors, and we started to do commercial and so much, when we still do. In 2000, first thing is that being comfortable is dangerous, and it's very easily done.
You can get complacent.
Of course, and I got complacent. In 2008, I used to think I was untouchable, and I never ever want to have a mindset like that ever again. I wasn't proud of that thought, the way that I used to think, because everything was pretty easy, everything was fantastic, everything was awesome. But the Almighty, the Supreme Being, whoever you believe to, Allah, Waheguru, Jesus, whatever you call the Supreme Being, you need to have some fear, because if you need to be taught, it will teach you in a second. And that's what happened. June 15, 2008, I got the lesson that I needed. And that lesson taught me to become a better human, because to be successful, materialistic successes are not the only vertical, and shouldn't be the first vertical to class success.
For those that are too young to know what happened in 2008, what happened in 2008?
June 15, 2008, I had a motorbike crash.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the market recession.
It all happened at the same time.
Wow.
It was almost like the Almighty, He had planned this all at the same time.
Wow.
All at the same time. Because I remember waking up in hospital and being told that the housing market is crashed. my whole world kind of came to an end. It was the darkest hole that I've ever been in. You know, like, I was from being somebody who was untouchable to now somebody whose business is going downhill. I'm in hospital, can't do nothing. I can't do anything. I couldn't move around.
Was that here?
In the UK.
And what was the crash like?
So I was riding along, and people said to me, like, we told you motorbikes were dangerous. You were probably speeding. You were probably doing this. It was nothing like that. I just took off at the lights, hardly picked up any speed, and I got taken out by an Audi Q7 who jumped the red light. Straight. Big hit.
Wow.
Out cold. And woke up in hospital thinking that, tomorrow I'll be in the gym, and like, will I be discharged today? I had no idea what was happening. I said, listen, the gym should be the last thing that you should be thinking. You should be thanking the Almighty that you're breathing. Wow. My right arm had to be kind of reconstructed. I've got so much metal in here. I had other injuries. And it was a really bad time. But then all of a sudden, the lessons that I got from that, I started to abuse alcohol. I was dependent on my mum, my family. They used to have to help me to have a bath, break my food up for me and feed me. And it's not a nice place to be. It's not a nice place to be. From somebody who used to think that I'm untouchable, that is the biggest lesson you can get. Even your children, I remember my son running up towards me in hospital and saw all this metal sticking out of my arm, and he got scared and he walked away, and I'll never forget that. He didn't want to come near me. He was too young to understand. Yeah. So that was a lesson. And all the people that were in my network, all my friends, I all of a sudden realized who actually were my real friends and who were just associates. It's not their fault. I expected too much from them. It's not their fault. So I can't say that they're bad humans because of that. It's my expectations, not theirs. I expected them to be around me even then. But then there's people who will associate with you because of benefits, and that's okay. Doesn't make them bad people. It means that they're associates. I have this little formula, and it helps me to understand sometimes when I get off track on understanding people. And that is 2 circles. One's an inner circle and one's an outer circle. All are good humans. The inner circle are the people that you can have expectations for. Those are the people that you can wake up at 3 a.m, call them, and they will not be upset with you for calling them and say, like, what's up? I'm there for you. And you would be there for them. And it's okay to have less than 5 people in that inner circle. You're not really going to have more than that. These are people that you don't have to dress up to go and meet. You don't have to be somebody that you're not. You can be who you are. And then you've got your outer circle, and these are associates. These are people that they may have expectations from you, and they may not do the same for you as what you might do for them or whatever, but you shouldn't be upset with it, because that's your outer circle, business associates and other people that you know. And that's what I learned from that experience. So, that there also helped me to create a better mindset, to be able to develop more business verticals, and that's your question, coming to that next. And that was that I was in a very bad place because I was abusing alcohol and eating all the bad kinds of foods, and I was in a very, very depressed state. And then I one day I decided that, I need to get out of this. I need to stop feeling sorry for myself and make a change, because the world doesn't owe me anything. That's what I used to think. Everyone owes me. Nobody owes me anything. The world was here before me. I have to make the change that I need to make to be able to get to the state that I need to get to. So I started to train. I started following Chris Gethin's program. There's a guy called Chris Gethin. Found his programs online, started following them. And then, training was always my passion. Even one of the reasons why I didn't have worse injuries than I had was because I used to train, and I was in a good physical state. Otherwise, probably I would be in a worse state. I probably wouldn't have recovered as well. And I then decided that when I got out of this, I kind of built my business back up, that I want to enter the health and fitness industry, because how I got away from alcohol and how I then started to train again, where doctors told me that you'd never be able to pick up a dumbbell again, I actually got into a better physical state than I was pre-accident. I wanted to help other people to do the same. And that's how I entered the health and fitness industry.
So that's tragic. That's crazy. And you had really been tested in that opportunity, in that kind of incident. But it was almost a chance to rebuild, realign, and try something new almost. Because maybe if that accident didn't happen, you maybe would have not got into the health and fitness industry. So you've recovered at that point. You started to look into the health and fitness industry. What happens next?
Some people would say that was a tragic event. I think that was the tipping point and the best thing that happened to me.
Wow.
And I'm very thankful to the Almighty. I'm very, very thankful to the Almighty. Could have been a different story. The lights could have gone off, but they didn't. And there's always a reason why something happens. People say everything happens for a reason. Reading all these quotes is great, but you got to act upon them, and I did. There was a reason why the lights didn't go out. And I realized that, in the property industry, doing what I'm doing, I'm making money, and is it really making me happy? Really making me happy? No, it wasn't. Because, I was doing what I was doing every single day, and it was the same thing every day. And I believe that everyone's put on this earth to make a change, to make a difference, no matter how small. Like you mentioned off camera, I wanted to make that small change. Same. I wanted to make that small change. And I realized all of a sudden, when I started telling people, when people used to say, "Oh, you look great. How did you do it?" And I'm like, "Try this and try that." And they're like, "Wow, it's working." That gave me satisfaction. And then I remember, telling my dad about this, and he wouldn't agree. He said, "Look, what do you know about the fitness industry? We're from the construction industry, we're from the finance industry. What do you know about gyms and fitness and so forth?" And I kind of tried to convince him, and he said no. He said, "Look, I don't agree with it." And for me, it's not that I wanted something from my dad. Having his blessings is all I need for anything that I do. Anything.
It's important, yeah.
If my dad says, "Go on, son, go for it," that's all I need. That gives me the confidence on a different level. And he wouldn't agree to that. He said, "No, we know this," because he knew it was a big risk. I knew it was a big risk. And then my mum passed away. I did enter the fitness industry then in some capacity. I asked my dad for his blessing. He said no.
So this was shortly after the accident?
The accident happened in 2008, and my mum passed away in 2010.
Short space of time.
It was a short space of time. And I did enter the fitness industry before she had passed away. She would always say, "Son, my blessings always with you." My dad wasn't, even though deep down he wanted me to be successful, but the people that I had got involved with at that time in the fitness industry, they weren't really the most honest people. But again, you learn, and you meet other people through meeting people, and that's what happened. And after my mum passed away, I decided that, I'm going all in with this. I learned that you can't do a business half-heartedly. Every business up until that point had been 100% apart from the fitness industry. And I needed to know more to be able to go in 100%.
What do you mean by that? Because there's a lot of people that go into business half-heartedly, and I completely know what you're talking about, but I think there's going to be a lot of people that will benefit from this. That's why I want to touch up on a little bit. So when you say not being half-hearted, what does that mean to you?
When I was doing finance, I was depending on somebody. It wasn't that I was half-hearted, but I was depending. So I was almost half-hearted. But when you know that you can do something yourself and you know how to do it, even if you employ somebody to do that job, at least you should understand how it's done. So when I was in the fitness industry, when I first started, I was depending on somebody, the same mistake. I was relying on what I thought they knew to make a success of that business. So if I'm going to go into the health and fitness industry, I need to know my craft. I need to know where my strengths are. I need to understand how it's working, how it will work, and I need to make sure that I have got the best people in the industry with me, committed 100% just like I am to make it a success. That's how you go into a business full on, not half-heartedly. If I'm going to rely on someone else and hope that it becomes a success, then I think that's a recipe for disaster, because hope is not a business plan. Hope is never a business plan. I know where my strengths are. I am not a personal trainer. I'm not a nutritionist, but I love the industry. So if I'm going to hire the best, or if I'm going to make somebody my business partner in a business, I need to know that they are the best, and I'm going to practice their principles to know that they work. So if somebody does ask me the question, I can tell them from a user's perspective, if not from an advisor's perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So when somebody used to say to me, transformation programs, yeah, what do you want to know? I can't advise you how to do it, but I can tell you how I done it, because I've done it. I walk the talk. You have to walk the talk. Simple. Don't get involved in the business otherwise. And if you do, understand the risk. That's what I say. Yes, there can be big gains to be made from big risks, but I take calculated risks just like my father, although my risks are a little higher than what he would have taken at that time. So I started going to exhibitions around the world, and then I understood that one of the best things that worked for me was the transformation that I done when I had the accident, and that was by Chris Gethin. How did I get connected by Chris Gethin? I was introduced by mutual people. I traveled the world, and this was after my mum passed away. I told my dad, I said, Dad, look, I want to do this. I convinced him. I used what I always used, which was my friendship with my dad. I said, Dad, this is what I want to do. Look at how I bounced back from becoming almost incapacitated. Couldn't do anything, to now obviously bouncing back. My business is back. I want to do this. And he's like, okay, son, go for it.
You finally got the blessing.
Got the blessing. Went for it. Went to all the expos that I could. Met all the people that I met. People used to think he's mad. But people started to recognize, oh, you were in LA. Now you're in Kuwait. Now you're in Dubai. Now you're in Canada. Meeting the same people who travel the world. But I was enjoying it. I was loving it. Absolutely loving it. And then I asked Chris to come to India. Because I had a business already in India, I knew that I used to train, and the gyms weren't that great because there was a lack of education on how to train people properly. People were doing things in the wrong way. Chris agreed, and the rest was history. We started the business in India just to educate people. I wanted to do it in Punjab. We failed. And we failed because, not because we didn't get a lot of people come to our seminars. The seminars were packed. But when I used to speak to people after the seminar, what did you find useful from our seminar? We didn't really understand what he said, but we just wanted a picture with him. People used to come and say, we just wanted a picture with this guy. They didn't even know, a lot of people didn't even know who Chris was. They just looked at him as a bodybuilder and a foreigner who's come to India, and they just wanted a picture. And I used to sit back and think, okay, yeah, we sold tickets, but is that successful? No, it's not. We want people to come and say, yeah, we learned this. We learned how to do X and Y, and we're going to go and implement that with our clients, or we're going to train differently now. So I had to get back to the drawing board. So I understood that I have to go to regions where education is more appreciated. So we went to Mumbai, and then we killed it. And then all of a sudden, we realized that there's still not enough. And then, I was introduced through a network to Hrithik Rohan. For those of you who don't know, he's an actor, quite a successful one in the Bollywood industry. And we transformed Hrithik Rohan for a movie called Krish 3.
No way.
Yeah. And up until now, he made history as the best physique in Bollywood.
Yeah.
And I'll challenge anybody to prove me otherwise. I'm happy to be proven otherwise, because that would be motivation. But, people then really took us seriously, because seeing is believing. I can sit here and tell you that I can do X and I can do Y, but if I show you I can do X and Y, you'll believe me. Talk is cheap. I believe in action. And when we did that, everybody wanted to know. And that's how we kind of set foot into the fitness industry in a bigger way.
And then it became quite a domino effect with the celebrities, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the other people that you worked with?
The list is endless. Ranveer Singh, Arjun Kapoor, Karan Johar. There's loads. If you Google us, I'm not saying that in an arrogant way, but Google us, you'll see the amount of celebrities that we've trained. But it wasn't about the celebrities. The celebrities, we really appreciate the opportunity to work with all of them. But the bigger picture was that all the people that they inspire were now inspired to actually take action. And we actually believe that we changed the fitness industry in that part of the world. Because before that, there was limited amount of people that did what we did. And because we changed the way that we do things, it blew up. And that's how the gyms were born. And now, even to this very day, we've got partnerships with some of the world's biggest brands as their education partners. In India, we've trained over 5,000 trainers who have attended either online or offline our events across the country and beyond. We've held educational events in Oman, in Kuwait, in Dubai, Canada, America, Africa. We're doing a lot in Europe right now. And that's because people can see the track record. And all of what we do with education opens up more opportunity, because this industry is evolving every single day, every single week, every single month. So, we're bringing new verticals to surface and helping people live a fitter and healthier lifestyle.
Amazing. So fast forward now, obviously a lot of things have happened since then. You're running multiple companies in multiple different industries, and potentially you didn't have a bigger shock since 2008 to 2020, I'm guessing, with the whole pandemic and everything that's come with it, and obviously being in the health and fitness industry as well, I'm sure it had its challenges. So what are you working on now? How have things kind of fruitioned during this time? Were there any positives that you could take from now? And what would you advise to anyone to do right now who is scared that the market is still uncertain?
Look, there's always a certain element of control that the media has on the confidence that humans have around the world. It's normal, okay? If you believe in something and you shout about it, the chances are other people will follow. It really depends on how much you believe in yourself, no matter what your product or service is. The pandemic, nobody could have guessed that this was going to happen. But fortunately for us, we've thrived through the pandemic, most of our businesses. And the foundation of that is having good communication with all of our clients, no matter what the business. For example, I'll just go back a little bit. So our property business, a lot of tenants didn't pay the landlords and things like that. At the very first opportunity, we connected with everybody, and we wanted to help them if they have any problems. And luckily for us, with the grace of the Almighty, we've been successful in helping people, and we've been good, and we've developed better and stronger relationships. And our other businesses, again, we've learned how to digitalize the business that weren't already digital. And the ones that were already digital, we've created better experiences for people, because over 1,000x traffic is moving towards digital platforms around the world. Even people of our grandparents' era who never ever used a mobile phone for websites and stuff like that are now using it in different languages. Urdu, Arabic, Chinese, whatever language. There's so many apps and websites that are giving away free content. I say digitalize as much as possible. Be genuine. Don't try and pretend to be something that you're not, because you'll get found out. And the more genuine you are, the more people that you'll attract and remain and retain their loyalty. So throughout this pandemic, we have just done what we've always done, but amplified it and created systems where we can ensure that our workforce are getting good experiences, because without our workforce, we wouldn't be where we are right now. We look at them as our extended families. Although we want our consumer to have good experiences, we also want our workforce to have good experiences, because ultimately it's their work that reaches the consumer, and if they're passionate, that's what the consumer gets, greater experiences. So the pandemic has strengthened our relationships with everybody, and we're proud to see at least 3 new verticals that have surfaced. We're doing a lot more online content. We're involved with some global companies now for mobile applications, and we are expanding our real estate business. We are now gearing up for 2021, where we're going to be involved with more government projects, or at least helping the government take some of that housing pressure off. And in terms of the fitness industry, we're going to be launching biohacking clinics around the world, starting in London. We've already pinpointed some locations, And biohacking is basically optimizing your health using science-backed methods. And yeah, life is good.
Amazing. So, kind of where we are now, obviously you've adapted your businesses, and one of the things that I'm very keen on learning for myself as well, and I'm sure everyone will benefit from the value as well, is you're in multiple different industries, multiple different companies, multiple different teams. How do you manage it all, and when do you say it's too much?
Systems. It's so important to have a balance. I went off balance for some time and I paid the price for it. And that price sometimes can turn into regret. I wish I could have spent more time with my mum. And that's a regret that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. I can't do anything about that. But what I can do is change what I'm going to do right now. So I live in the present, I do plan for the future, and I learn from the past. Okay? So right now I have a balance where I give my family the time that they deserve. I have a better relationship. The pandemic has given me that opportunity to spend more time with my children, with my family, and I love it. And I have made conscious decisions on how I'm going to move forward. I'm going to travel less. What I would always say is that if you feel it's becoming too much, scale your business in a way where you can employ people to take some of that pressure off your shoulders. I focus on doing what I'm good at within my businesses, and I've created systems that report to me daily, and I pinpoint the time in the day to give each business the time that it needs. And if I feel that it's becoming too much, it's probably because maybe I need to optimize that business more, maybe because there's some areas in that business that I need to work on, or the business is growing and we need to expand the workforce. So dedicate, delegate, and have good systems. But most importantly, have patience. If you don't have patience, then you can very quickly go off that balance again. Because everybody wants to get results really quickly. And that's not a sustainable way of moving forward.
How do you stay so disciplined? Because being an entrepreneur is every single day, right? And every single day you're going to have external factors that come in your life, pressures, hardships, multiple things that happen externally to your business. How do you pick yourself up and come to the office the next day?
You're never ever going to be motivated every single day. And that's the truth. As much as I like to say that, think positive and always be productive, and you're going to wake up one day and you just may not feel motivated. And that's why it's important to have accountability tools in place where you can use your discipline to kill that day. The days where my energy levels are low, I have accountability tools to hand, always. And that could be in a way of notes on my phone, reminders that pop up, and digital technology that I use to keep myself accountable. And the days that I have low frequency, I make sure that I find whatever it takes to make that a high frequency day at the end. That's my goal. And if you've set goals that really are important to you, you'll find the discipline. All you got to do is wake up and say, you know what? It's not important for me to do what I plan to do today, because it doesn't matter. It's okay if I don't get one more step closer towards this goal, because it's not important to me. The day you say that is when you realize that, hold on a minute, I'm wasting my time pursuing this goal because it's not important to me. It's not about giving it what you've got. It's about giving it what it takes. And sometimes that is discipline and scraping that barrel. So I practice a lot of different things in the day and throughout my life, which has helped me to become more disciplined today. I like to measure progress, and when I see that I am making progress, it inspires me to keep doing more. I have an addictive personality. So, I was addicted to alcohol when I was going through a bad phase. Now I'm not. I know that's bad for me, so I'd rather use that addiction to things that are going to help me to grow. I wake up and I thank the Almighty and I pray, I meditate, and I work out every single morning. Not just for me, because I want to be an inspiration to my family and other people around me, but that's what helps me to be disciplined in every area of my life. I live an intermittent fasting lifestyle. I fast every single day,
Wow.
Without fail. I do take some days off. I fast for a minimum of 16 hours every day, an average of 18 hours per day a week. I've done 24, 36-hour fasts. I've done 5-day fasts. I've done dry fasts. But all of these things that I practice help me to learn a different level of discipline, and I hope that this continues to make me a better human.
Wow, this is by far one of my favorite episodes, 100%, because not only do I know that people are going to benefit from it, but I'm benefiting it for myself. And when I get those opportunities, I know automatically it's going to be a great episode. So thank you for coming on. Before we end, I just want to try something a little bit new to celebrate our 1K subscribers. So we're going to try a new segment. Let me know in the comments below if you like this idea. So we're going to ask you a random question that has nothing to do with what we spoke about, just to kind of make it a little bit more fun. So my question is, if you had any superpower, what would that superpower be and why?
That's a great superpower. Look, I'm going to be very honest with you, okay? And I'm not saying this just because I'm on the camera. I believe that we already have a superpower, okay? And the superpower is to control our mind, okay? If I had, if I could make that wish 20 years ago, I would wish that I could control my mind better.
Wow.
And I think that is the best superpower, because if you can control your mind to think better, appreciate, be kind, not let negative vibes affect you, how much more of a superpower can you wish for? Knowing that you're blessed every single day when you open your eyes, that's a superpower. No matter how tough the day might be, having a superpower to go through that day, I think that's the best superpower that anybody could have, is to learn to control your mind.
That is interesting. I was expecting you to say I can fly or but that was a great answer, because I think it's true. Like, the reality is we don't have superpowers, and some of the superpowers that we would like is never going to happen. So why not ask for the things that we can actually have control over to a certain extent?
Absolutely.
Jag, thank you so much. For anyone that wants to follow your journey, or see what Jag's all about, or maybe do a bit more research on you and find out what's happening over the next few months, what's the best place for them to follow you on?
I'm quite active on Instagram. I try and post as much as possible. So Instagram is a great place, and you can also check me out on my website.
What's your Instagram for people that want to find out?
It's
We'll put it in the description anyway, but...
Sure. My Instagram is at Jag Chima, JAGCHIMA.
Very lucky that you've got the actual username, of your name.
Well, I don't know how many of the Jag Chimas there are, but I'm fortunate. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Comment, like, share, all of that good stuff, and we'll see you next time.